Hello, everybody. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and it's time to break down the Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer. I am a big Ghostbusters fan. I even love Ghostbusters 2. I liked it as a kid, grew on me, watching the Statue of Liberty come out to "Your love is lifting me higher." It's all good. And I love the cartoon. Was not a fan of the Kristen Wiig remake, but we'll ignore that. I want to break down this trailer. I'm not going to react. I already watched it. I hope you did too. The trailer is all over YouTube, so go look Ghostbusters Afterlife. I want to break it down. I saw some cool things about it that really are a smart homage to the original and actually make it seem like it's much more connected to the originals than I thought it would be. Overall, my review, I thought it was more serious than I expected. I thought Jason Reitman has done a really good job creating sort of this opening tone. It feels more like a Jason Reitman movie in the start. You don't really know what's going on, and they don't even really tease that it's a Ghostbusters film until sort of that green stuff comes out. But even then, it could have just been a random spooky movie. No, this moment's really funny, but the first real moment, if you didn't even realize it, was right here. Did you guys notice it? Did you guys notice it? What is this? What is this? What is that? That looks like an kind of an odd symmetrical book stacking, no? If you guys remember from Ghostbusters 1.
Symmetrical book stacking. Just like the Philadelphia mass turbulence of 1947.
Mass turbulence. Whoa.
You're right. No human being would stack books like this.
But just like the Philadelphia mass turbulence of 1947. So mass turbulence, that's what's happening in the movie. They're shaking. So clearly a throwback to the original movie. As we go back as well, there's a bunch of other little things here until we get to this obvious thing. The Ghost Trap. And Paul Rudd as Mr. Gooberstein. What is it? Gooberston. Well, I'm excited to see him. He's a fan. There's sort of been these questions of how could they not know how could they not know about ghosts in this world? I'm giving them a pass because I think we're trying to imply clearly there's a relationship here with they're saying this would be his granddad. Egon is what we learn who it to be. But I don't know. I think there's more to this of why they're not remembering it. Kids don't always remember history and they're young. And the mom may not have wanted them to know any of this stuff and has been hiding it from them. So that didn't bother me. But I do love that we have Paul Rudd sort of as the expert. And then she's obviously finding the turn. But then even before we get the name tag, who else remembers when Annie Potts' character is asking Egon, Janine's asking him, well, what do you do as a hobby? And he goes, I collect spores, molds, and fungus. I mean, here we go. If the name tag wasn't clear enough that we're in Egon's weird farmhouse, it's when Paul Rudd goes, "Who are you?" And then boom, 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 right there, Spengler. Whew, so cool. Now look, she clearly looks like him. I mean, they're going for that vibe. I thought maybe it was a misdirect and we were going to have some weird no, it's Venkman's kid. Because if anybody has weird illegitimate kid, it would be Venkman, right? That seems to be the more obvious choice. But, it makes more sense to have Egon be the one, since Harold Ramis sadly no longer is with us. How do you respect him? Well, we're going to follow his character's family. To me, is the wise way to do it. And I remember this script had been going around for a while. I remember Max Landis pitching us one way back. And it was always about Egon's daughter. So my point being, this was clearly something that's always been sort of around. And I get it, unless they're tricking us, I think that was clearly something Jason Reitman took and said, well, yeah, let's obviously run with that. There's a bunch of cool treatments online that have been out there of sort of trying to get this movie finally made. Now, people are complaining it's a kid's movie. I don't have a problem with it. I think this looks really well done. It looks like a dangerous kids movie. It looks like the kind of movie from the 80s that we actually used to watch. At least I used to watch as a kid. So I'm excited for sort of a little bit more danger. All this stuff just feels more exciting. So seeing this throwback footage was also cool. Reitman came out with Ivan Reitman, director of the original. They came out and said there's a lot of old footage they found that they're repurposing. So I'm imagining this is sort of a cool use of doing it. They're going to go through YouTube clips of the old cases and sort of use that as new footage. But the big reveal, obviously aside from the name, comes here where we see on there, it says this mining place is actually an important place. I'm following my notes here, so make sure it says here, why can't I find it? There it is. Okay. This is the Shandor Mining Company. Right here. So if you can see it just barely here, Shandor Mining Company is where they're going. Now, Shandor is a big character. If you've ever played the game or you are a really big super fan of the original, then you would know that Shandor actually refers to Ivo Shandor, who played the villain in the game. I don't want to get into too much about the game. I haven't played the game, actually. I've been wanting to, but I never had the system to do it. But he was not only the villain in the game, but he was the leader of the cult of Gozer. And that, which was he was a big antagonist in the video game, but he was the architect of Dana's building. So that's why Gozer came there. And so why it's all sort of connected was that, she lived in the building that was designed by him. It was sort of designed as a satellite to attract Gozer and sort of along in the running. So this mining mention of the of the Shandor Mining Company is clearly a throwback and implying that we're going to revisit Gozer. Now that worries me a little bit, but at the same time, I appreciate that the Reitmans are paying attention. They're like, no, we're going to go back and do this the right way, as if this is a proper part 3. It's going to be connected in a way to make it justified as to why the ghosts have been gone and now they're coming back. Clearly, that's connected to why they came back in the first place back in the 80s. And so I liked that. I thought that was a clever connection. And so I'm a fan of where they're going with that. And I think that's important that we sort of bring these two worlds together. So then as we continue, there's a bunch of obviously action. We meet the car, and there's a voice over here that you may not have noticed it sounds familiar. And I notice a lot of people don't really realize this right away when they're hearing it. But you're actually listening to Bill Murray. Bill Murray's character doing his line from the original Ghostbusters, which I've pulled the clip here. If you didn't remember, here it is.
You don't know what it's like out there. I've worked in the private sector. They expect results.
For whatever reasons, Ray, call it
Fate.
call it
Luck. Call it karma.
I believe that everything happens for
For a reason.
I believe that we were destined to get thrown out of this dump.
It's a really good use in a sing-songy way to sort of remember Venkman in that sort of way, in a very fitting use in the trailer. It was really that it was like, yes, that was a very cool moment for me. And so then we have a lot of cuts of exciting stuff. They're not really showing us too much, which I really appreciate. But then we finally get the finale of the trailer, gives us the Ecto-1 in action. Now, I don't remember this. This was never happened in the movie, but as I sort of go around, I do remember they had the cartoon had sort of a gunner seat. It wasn't on the side. But I'm trying to remember if this was actually in the cartoon or if this is sort of a new feature that was added later. But it makes it way cool. But if you do recall, there was a gunner seat in the cartoon. And so it was on the top of the car with Ray sitting on it. And then the figures, they had it for the top. And then they had a push out feature. So while he was sitting there, you could have him pop out. So this was sort of a cool like throwback, like, all right, well, let's embrace some of the coolness that the cartoon had, that the figures had, and go there. Because I think it was, look, you got to remember, Ghostbusters became a kid's product. Even though it started as a more adult sort of sexy, questionable action, sci-fi, scary movie, Ghostbusters was marketed to kids. Immediately, the cartoons, the toys, everything became like, no, sell this to kids. And then Ghostbusters 2 pivoted a bit. Less sex, no, BJ Ghost in part 2. And so that switched it around to sort of make it more appealing to kids since the cartoon became so successful. And then it sort of stopped, and they never made any more. But this idea to appeal to kids, I think, is where Ghostbusters went anyway. And I don't have a problem with it. I was a kid when I watched it, and I hope it's a little bit more serious and darker like the original, but still kid safe. I think is fine for this franchise. It's a fun franchise. There's a way to do dark and still be fun for kids, and a lot of that stuff in Ghostbusters 1 just goes over people's heads anyway, kids' heads anyway. But cool throwback. And then obviously one major callback as well. And it makes sense then if Gozer is returning. There's a shot here. I'm sorry, it was earlier. There's a shot here where we see some sort of this foot stomping. I mean, I don't know. I can't confirm. We're only speculating, but that sure as heck to me looks like a terror dog. If you recall them, they'll be back. It seems like, and that's good or bad, right? It's good or bad in that nostalgia. Let's keep reminding you of all the things from Star Wars, from Ghostbusters. But you have to do that very carefully, or otherwise it becomes kind of a joke and just a retread. At the same time, if you're revisiting these characters, which I'm glad they are, then at least they're giving us something, that we want, not like sort of teasing it and then not really going there, which I feel like a lot of franchises have been doing, of like, yeah, Force Awakens style, like, yeah, let's bring back your characters, but not really deal with them or address it in a clever, cool way. They're just there. Oh, and now they're gone. Now let's watch the kids. yet to be seen what will happen, but I hope they find the way to sort of connect the old characters in a way that makes sense and not just fan service. Last thing I want to talk about was this awesome fan theory I saw on Reddit, because I've been looking up like, well, how can it be Egon's grandkids? How would that change sort of the story of things? And this thread on Reddit, props to Country 82 Tex Egon family speculation did the math for me, and I wrote some of it down and added a little bit myself. But you can sort of read it there if you're curious where I got this information from. But it says that the non-canon sort of Ghostbusters birthday of Egon is November 21st, 1957. We have to then speculate late 50s is probably a good guessing game as to when Egon would be born. Ghostbusters 1, that would put him in his 20s. Ghostbusters 2, he's then in his 30s. Late 20s, Ghostbusters 1, early 20s for Ghostbusters 2. And now that his kids are 16 and 12, we can tell by Finn Wolfhard and the actress, they would be about 16, 12. And then Carrie Coon, the mom, is 38. So let's put her in 40s. And that would put 2020 minus 1957. That means Egon would be 63. And that means minus 16. He would have been 47 when he had his first kid. And Carrie, the actress playing the mom, would be 24. So if we then go back and say that Carrie was Egon's kid, that means Egon would have to be 23 when he had Carrie. And then Carrie would have grown up and then had a kid of her own, and then that math would work. But if he's 23, that means he would have had this girlfriend and, not even, just some sort of child in the late 20s, early 20s, pre-Ghostbuster movie that we never knew about. Or she's faking it and she's really his ex-wife. She would have been a little older, but not that much. It would have been pretty older. It's like a 20-something year age difference. So that's the speculation of how do you do the math on, well, how does Egon have kids? We don't know that much about him, obviously. He could have had a secret life. Why not? That makes it interesting. But I hope they, address this, and I imagine they will. Who's really the dad? Why did Egon not tell anybody about these kids? Did the other Ghostbusters know? All of this stuff is the big question marks for me as a fan of like, well, wait a second. Does that mean he was like sleeping around like Venkman? He didn't seem like that type. But who knows? There's clearly some sort of secret to Egon's life that we need to learn about, the character, because the math is a little wacky there for him to be the grandfather if you really go down and do that aging. So there you go. So what do you guys think? Overall, I'm excited. I like the tone of it. I saw some people criticizing that it's too serious. I think it's just right. That joke at the under the table. So the way we remember when we went out that summer, we died under the table. That feels Ghostbusters-y to me. Some people are complaining that it's about the kids. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a kids. It's always become a kids franchise, and I think the tone looks more like it's respectful and serious, but still fun. And I think if they go that vibe of like a Goonies and a real proper 80s vibe, it's funny. This felt more 80s to me and it's present day than a lot of the stuff, Stranger Things and the Wonder Woman 84, all of that sort of like 80s nostalgia. But this one felt like the tone of a proper 80s movie, like an actual tonal sequel. And it's present day. So kudos for Jason Reitman so far. Great first trailer. I think the reactions have been pretty positive. People are now pumped. And this hopefully can finally please Ghostbusters fans who were upset with the Paul Feig version, who I just don't think he did respect to the original. I think he tried to make his own, and he took a shot at bat, and he missed. It was not, to me, the biggest problem with that movie. It had nothing to do with all female. It was just not funny. And it was four funny women, like all trying to jockey for the funniest, which I don't think was what Ghostbusters was about. Harold Ramis was they were all, he was very funny, Harold Ramis, but he wasn't playing it like he was the goofy character. And then Ernie Hudson wasn't really a comedic actor. He's like the sort of straight guy, like, what am I doing in this world? And then you had Dan Aykroyd, who's a very funny person, but playing sort of the techno geek. And then you had Bill Murray, who was the comic relief. But as we said in that honest trailer for it way back, that remake really was, everyone was a Venkman. They were all trying to be their funny, get their one-liners in, and it just fell flat completely. So I'm glad they're going a different direction. They're not going that route to people who like the remake of Ghostbusters. Good for you. I'm not a fan. This, to me, is where I hoped they'd go, and I hope, it sounds like if the original cast is coming back, they're going to come back for good reason, because if this, mining company connects to Gozer, then everything does sort of fall into place as to why this would make sense. This was the original place of where it all went down. It's been buried. It's finally coming out. All of that stuff. And that's why he's been parking near there, because he was waiting for this to happen. And then maybe something went wrong and Egon's not prepared, but now his family gets to do it for him. That's good redemption's character for Egon. We get to learn more about him. And I'm sure we'll learn that maybe he didn't know he had this family. I mean, if he's really some jerk who walked out on his kids, that's not going to be a good look. They're not going to disrespect Egon's legacy like that. So I think there's going to be a fun family reunion and realization and tears and fun, and then also exciting. All of the ingredients are here. Let's hope they stir them in the right mix and bake something awesome for us. What do you guys think? Hit me up down below. Tell me if you saw anything in the trailer that I missed. And if you're excited for it, I want to hear all, either on the comments down below or on social media at Andy Signor. And you can check out our first look about Ghostbusters, as well as roast reactions, and the Ghostbuster trailer will be coming tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Stay tuned for more videos. Bye.